All right, so our recording is live, and now we're going to look at setting up a Stacks miner on Windows. So what I've been doing recently for some of these other ones, there's two ways we can run a miner. The first one is to download the code from GitHub and build the executables that we need in order to do it. And the second is to download the release from GitHub, which is a little bit easier because then we don't have to go through all of the build steps and everything else. So what I'm going to do is actually I'll send you in the Discord chat, I'll send you some links as we go along here. So the very first one you're going to want to go to is this, the latest release that you can get off of GitHub here. And one of the options is actually going to be Windows on that list, and you'll want to download that file. So you'll actually start with the browser, Ethan.
Sure. So, yep, I'm downloading the file now.
Okay. And then once you have that file downloaded, we'll want to extract it into its own folder, so it's no longer a zip. And then we'll want to go to that folder in our command prompt. So that'll be kind of the next step we're headed towards.
Got it. Sure. Yeah, I'm extracting it now.
Okay.
Right. So I've extracted it. So do I bring it into the folder or?
Yeah, so now we actually want to, so on your command prompt, you're going to use the cd, the change directory command, and we'll go into probably downloads and then the Windows folder that you just extracted. I'm guessing wherever your downloads go.
All right. I've downloaded it to desktop.
Oh, to desktop. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can cd desktop. And then you'll want to cd into the folder that you extracted as well. So it should be like Windows-x64, I think.
64. Yeah.
Perfect. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to run a follower node, and I'm going to send you the command here, just to make sure things are working before we go create a keychain and everything else. Still early on my coffee there. Let me resend that command. So you're just going to basically run stacks node krypton, and that should work. Actually, I'm sorry. You can delete the dot / at the beginning. You can do just stacks node.exe krypton. I'm getting my Windows and my Linux mixed up a little bit there. Okay, so here we can see it's working. And this is just running a follower node. It's not doing any mining, but it would catch up with the network. And that prompt that came up, you will want to allow that as well, because that's going to allow the communication through your firewall and everything like that. So you can exit this. To get this to stop, we hit Control-C on the keyboard.
Control-C.
Next up, I want to see if you have node installed. So if you'll type in node --v and hit enter.
-v.
Excellent. So you are good to go. We're going to run this command here that I sent you. So we're going to run the stack CLI command to make a keychain. It has a -t for testnet, and we're going to put it into a file so that we can keep track of it and use it later.
Got it.
And I'm just waiting to see the confirmation on that.
Yes, I think I will disconnect and I'll try the video because I'm different machine. So I'll try the video and then reach out to you, Jason, in case.
Yes, definitely. Feel free to reach out to me on the chat, and I'll touch base with you when we're done here, and we can switch over and do your Mac as well, if that makes sense. So thanks for coming for this part, and just let me know if you get stuck.
Sure, thank you. Good luck.
All right. Bye-bye. Okay, so this part's going to take a minute, but basically what we're doing here is generating your keychain that you're going to use with the network. So in a non-testnet environment, this is sensitive information. We'd want to keep this to ourselves. You're going to have your mnemonic phrase, your private key, your stacks address, and your Bitcoin address all in this JSON file.
Got it.
And it goes pretty quick. It should be done here soon.
And I'll assume that the steps will be the same for mainnet.
So you can see here on the make keychain command, there's that -T.
Yes.
That generates a testnet address. So there is a slight change in the addressing format, much like there is with Bitcoin, so that we know an address is either on testnet or mainnet. So you'll need a new address and a new key for working on mainnet.
Got it. Got it.
And that's the one you definitely want to keep private and everything too.
Yeah.
But for this, I find it easier to just make it work. So let's see here. I think that should be. Did that finish or it's almost done? Your prompt takes a minute to update on my screen, so we just gotta let it get through. And then I'm going to send you another command so you can do, there's a command called type that will type the output to the screen. So this will show us that the file was created correctly. As soon as everything's done, we can see kind of what's inside of it, and we'll have to use some of those values as we go along for the next steps.
Got it.
And I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for that, I'm going to have you download the configuration file that you need as well. So what I'm sending you here is a link to the configuration file that I have in my repo. And as soon as you open that up, you can just click on File, Save As.
All right.
I see the errors there, but I think we're going to be okay. So we'll go ahead and finish the download first. Go ahead and File, Save As that miner configuration file. And you'll want to put that in the same folder on your desktop as everything else that we're doing right now.
Okay.
So when you go to save it, it should be called kryptonminerconf.toml.
That's right. And I'll put it in the same folder, Windows-x64.
Perfect.
Got it.
Yep, and that way we're going to edit that here in a little bit. But for right now, I want you to go ahead and try that type command that I sent over. And we'll see if the keychain was generated despite, I think it gets generated despite those errors. Perfect.
Yeah.
So here we see our information. So as far as testnet goes, this would be your mnemonic, your key info for your private key, your stacks address, and your Bitcoin address. So that's perfect. So the first thing we're going to need is that private key value on the second line.
Okay.
So it starts with 21B all the way to the end.
Yeah.
You'll want to copy that out, and you're going to put that into the TOML file that we just downloaded. So you can open that up in Notepad or similar. There's going to be a line that says seed and then replace with your private key. And you want to put it right in between those quotes there and save that.
Right. Yeah, I've done that.
Perfect. Okay, so that's what we're going to use. Last step here that we need to do is to take your Bitcoin address and to get you some Bitcoin from the faucet. So for yours, since you're on Windows, you don't have curl. Let me find the faucet link for you. So there's a few ways to do things, and that is the beauty of it. Perfect. So I'm sending you over a link now. This is the website for the faucet. From here, you'll want to put your Bitcoin address or your test Bitcoin address in the bottom one, so the MTQ. And as soon as you do that, we should get a result pretty quickly, as long as it says it's successful. And I'll line up the next link that we need to check it.
So I'll key in the Bitcoin address.
Yeah, so you want to put the Bitcoin address to get your testnet Bitcoins. Each time you hit the faucet, you get half a Bitcoin.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah. It says that you have received your testing Bitcoin.
Excellent. Excellent. So we'll give that just a minute to come through anyway. And what I want to find was the link to check that. I should have it right down here. Okay, so I just sent you a link that goes to the Stacks Node API. And basically, if you put your Bitcoin address on the end of that link, you should see a result on, it'll just output some JSON.
Got it. Yeah.
And do you see a balance there?
Give me a second. I don't think the link works. I'll try it again.
Sure. And actually, if you'll send me your Bitcoin address, you want to replace BTC address on the end of that link with your actual Bitcoin address.
Right.
I'm trying to do the same thing over here. I'm actually copying that string now. BY4PIOLRYDA. Boom.
All right. So I've got this error when I click on the link.
Yeah, and you know, so your link at the top there. See how it says BTC address at the end?
Ah, so I've got to change that.
Yeah, you want to replace that with your actual Bitcoin address from the file. Perfect. Yep. So we should get balance 0.5. Okay, so we're ready to start mining. That was the last little piece there.
Got it.
So the next thing we want to do, I'm going to send you the command in just a second. For Windows. Okay, so what you're going to run is the same Stacks node file that we ran before, but we're going to use the keyword start instead of the keyword Krypton. And we're going to use that config file that we saved and set up with your private key. That's how the miner knows to interact with use your Bitcoin as well as where to reward the stacks. And it looks like we broke it. Awesome. So now we get to see what happened there. So usually a panic means something went wrong. The code crashed and it tries to give us some more information. In this case, quite often, if it panics right when you start it up, then there's probably something wrong with that configuration file. So if we can you pull up that configuration file in Notepad for us?
Yeah, sure.
All right, so this looks correct. You've got it between quotes like you should. Okay, so let's go back to the command prompt.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at that command I had you enter again. So you can just hit the up arrow. It'll bring up your last command. Stacksnode.exe start config. And just one more time, just hit enter for me. I thought that might happen. Okay. Let's take a look. If you'll put in the type command for your keychain file again. So it'd be type space keychain.json. And if we could look at the Notepad file again, just to make sure we got the whole private key in there. So it's 2NB ends in 501. 21B and then 501. Okay, go ahead and leave that up. I'm going to compare that. I'm thinking that something might be a little out of date in my configuration file here. So I'm going to look at the one from the Testnet website. And we'll see if there's any differences. Strap node 048 DD4, yep. All the way through testnet miner. And D airport. Well, that's interesting. Everything definitely looks correct here. So let's try a slight variation on that command. I'm going to send you the same thing here again. We're going to tell it to make sure it uses the current directory. Almost the same exact thing. And same error. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to read a little bit through this error message, see if anything jumps out at me. Can you scroll down a little bit, please? Thank you. Yeah, this seems funny to me that we can run the Stacks node Krypton and it runs fine, but our config file is causing a crash here. So probably the best thing to do, I'm going to send you a link from the testnet page, from the instructions, and I'm going to have you copy over the same configuration file and create a new one, just so we can kind of rule that out as the problem. So let me find that for you here.
So I'll delete the one that I've done previously.
Yeah, or you can create another one with a new name, but we'll just give it a try to see if something funny happened there. And you know, it might have been a bad copy paste. Sometimes it's an extra character, so it's just an easy thing to try. Okay, so here, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I just sent you the text from basically directly from the Blockstack testnet website. So this is should be the same exact configuration file, but I'll have you copy it in Notepad. Go ahead and do a file save as. We'll want to make sure it's called config.toml.
And I'll replace my private keys.
You got it. Yep. So you're a pro already.
Still learning. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and then if you'll just do a quick dir for me, dir in that directory, so I can take a look at it before we run the command.
All right. So what do I do? dir?
Yeah, dir and enter. That basically says list the directory contents. Excellent. Okay, so looking at this, we have stacksnode.exe. Aha! So here I see our problem. This is a common thing in Windows, and I'm actually really happy this one came up. So Windows by default will hide file extensions for known file types. And I do not like this feature because I think it makes things a little confusing. You know, a TOML file is going to look like a text file. It's just a certain set of formatting. So do in this case, actually, if you just rename that configuration file to be without the extension .text, we're going to be good to go. Now, the trick with that is I don't think you have access to do that from your file explorer without changing some settings. So we can do it from the command prompt here.
Right.
I just have to remember the rename command, and I'm going to look that up right now. I think it's just REN. So we could say rename, and it'll be Krypton miner text to Krypton miner conf toml. All right, so I sent that command to you there. Let's try that.
Got it.
And go ahead and run dir again, dir. Much better. Okay, so that's what we needed. So in this case, you should be able to run the same command we were using earlier. So it'll be the stacks node start with the config to Krypton miner. Bingo.
All right.
And look at that. So now here's your two key screens. You've got checking UTXOs at address. There's your Bitcoin address. Starting up UTXOs found. So those first two tell us that our miner started successfully. So you're mining. That's it.
Wow, that's it.
So what's going to happen here is it's going to take a little while to catch up with the network. And there's a few ways that we can kind of check on the network to see where it's at. It was just reset yesterday. So it shouldn't be too far to catch back up. But let me send you this link really quick. So you have kind of two different views of the network that you can use your browser for here. And what your miner is going to do is it's going to download every transaction that's already happened, download every block that's been processed. And once it catches up with the network, you'll start participating in the leader elections. And when that starts happening is when you say, okay, I'm spending this much Bitcoin, which is a default amount of 20,000 sats per block. And you'll spend that. And if you win, then you get the stacks credited to your stacks address after a certain lockup period. So that's the basic process of what's going on there. And then the link I just sent you is to look at the info endpoint for the main Blockstack node. So you can open that up in the browser. Same, and this one should work too. So we'll switch over to the browser real quick while we wait for that to catch up.
Okay.
Looks like you actually might be caught up already, which is awesome. But we'll take a look at this first. I'll kind of tell you what you're looking at. Okay. So this one, it comes from the main node, and we're looking for two values. The first one is on that first line. It's called burn block height. And the next one is on the third line, and it's called stacks tip height. So those are the two numbers that you want to catch up to. That's the height of the burn chain, which in this case is Bitcoin, is at 1027. And then the stacks tip height is 659. That's where our stacks chain is. So that's what we're catching. If we look at the other link I sent you, the 127.
The 127 here.
You got it in the tab right there next to it. Perfect. This is your node. So we can see on yours that you're still at burn block height 240. You don't have a stacks tip height yet, so you haven't started processing that piece yet. And that should change. So this definitely looks like an early on. I think you're okay still, but we want to let it run for a bit, and we actually want to see that stacks tip height go up. But I think that's just going to be a time factor. And with the burn block height at 240, so if we look at the other one for Testnet miner, it was at 600 something, I believe. Oh, 1,000. Okay. So it'll take about 15 minutes, maybe 30 or so to catch up. And once that happens is when you'll start mining. So the way you can tell if you're mining or not is to use that, use the link to check your Bitcoin balance for one, and you should see your Bitcoin balance go down. So be that one with the actual BTC address. Yeah, it'll get mad at us for that. And then I'll send you a link where you can check your stacks, your stacks balance as well. You can actually do that through the main node or through your own node, and you just have to put in the stacks address. But you won't have anything in there yet because you haven't started mining just yet. So you can kind of see how it's very similar. You just put your stacks address where it says stacks address, And that should work, but it might actually take a little while for your miner to get fully online and everything as well. Yeah, it looks like it doesn't want to give us that one yet. If you try the other link with the testnet miner endpoint, that might actually work right away. And if not, a lot of times you just got to give it a little time to catch up anyway. There we go. So here's the information about your stacks address. You have your balance, you have the amount locked, the unlock height, and the nonce. So this is an easy way to get a picture of what's going on in the background. And from here, the other option we have, did you want to try and set up the mining bot as well?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So for that, we're going to go back to we'll need a new command prompt.
Sure.
And
I'll leave the existing miner running.
Yeah, we'll leave it running for right now. We'll let that catch up.
Got it.
All right. So do you have Git installed?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So what I'll have you do is first you're going to clone the mining local server. So that would be this command. And you can actually, if you want, before you start this, if you want to do this in that folder on your desktop, then you can kind of keep everything together. That way it doesn't get too messy. Yep. So you could CD desktop and then CD Windows x64.
Got it.
You could actually do that all together, but I'm doing it the easy way.
Windows x64. Windows x64.
I think it was -x64 for that one. Almost.
Yep, that's right.
Okay, perfect. So go ahead and run that. That's going to clone into the mining local server folder. And perfect. So now you'll CD into mining local server as the folder. You're going to do npm install, which is the node package manager.
Yeah.
Excellent. And when that's finished, we'll hit npm start, and that will start this piece. And then we'll need one more command prompt window, just because we don't have enough of them. And the next one will be for the mining bot itself. And we can do the same thing. We can get into the directory, keep it all in the same place. Perfect. So yeah, you're right on point there. You should see it starts at port 5000. Probably
and I'll allow
firewall, same kind of thing. Okay, so this one, that one is prepped and ready, and that's the component that you want to start first before the mining bot. So we got the mining local server up. And for the next command prompt, I just sent you the link. We'll download the mining bot repository from GitHub. And you want to actually, I would CD into the folder first.
Got it.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to keep it all together for you. That way you don't have a mess to deal with later.
That's right. All right. Okay. Desktop Windows X.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure that'll be faster. There we go. Perfect. So that'll make a mining bot folder. And then for this one, do you have yarn installed? You can do yarn space -v. Or I think it's actually -- version, but no, we don't have yarn. Okay, so what we're going to do there is install it via npm. And there's a few other ways to do it too, but this one's pretty quick. Okay, so now you want to do a yarn install.
Yarn.
Is Dexter in here?
He is in here, you're right. And then now you're going to do npm start, just like before.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see what happened here. It looks like we got a little error. Oh, I see what happened. So actually, before we did the yarn install, we wanted to cd into the mining bot directory.
Got it. Mine.
So once we're in there, then you can do the yarn install. It'll pick up the package JSON and kind of go from there. So you have to yarn install first. That'll pick up all the packages. And this one takes a minute because there's a UI that it has to load, and even after we run it, it takes a minute too because it's using Webpack, and it's it looks great so far. It just takes a little longer than the other stuff. Okay.
So would I still have to reinstall the mining bot again when mainnet starts, or this is good?
Well, I think it's going to change a little bit, and that part I'm less sure about, but I'm excited because I know we have our demo coming up later today, and I think that's going to be helpful in understanding kind of what the overall goal is and how we're supposed to use it. And I think the first time we use it with a competition, we're also going to learn a lot. Because I know with the last competition, actually like trying to compete with everybody and see like who could do the most blocks for the cheapest amount, that taught me more than doing it at any other point. So I learned a lot just from that respect.
Yeah. Well, because I'm also hoping to try it out when the next competition comes up, but I'm not sure if I could manage the technical aspects of it.
Well, I think once you have this set up, like really all you would have to do is go into the mining local server, npm start. You go into mining bot, npm start, and then you have a web interface to do everything else. And we'll kind of go over that once it's up and running and everything like that. And of course, I mean, if there's any code updates, we want to grab those beforehand and have the most recent version. But it should be fairly simple that way. I imagine that somewhere down the road, this will be hosted on a website that we can get to. I don't think it will always be set up locally. This is more for development and for testing. But I'll let them make those decisions because it's not my bot. Let's see. It looks like, we're still downloading packages for that. I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for this to finish its install, and when it's done installing, our next step is just to npm start on that same command. But let's go ahead and check to see like where your miner's at. So the 127001 with v2 info in the links there. And we'll just see where your miner's at and how it's doing. I still see the command prompt though.
This.
Yeah, so that's the one we want to see. So we were at 240.
Oops.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at your miner then. So the running miner that we had in the other command prompt, is it still running?
Right. Is this the one? Yeah.
Looks like all right, so that one, looks like you ended it with Control C.
Oh. So I have to start it again.
Yep. Now, so here's something interesting too. So what's going to happen here is it's actually going to start all over again. What happens every time we run Stacks node with this configuration file, by default, it creates the database for all the blocks and all of the chain information inside our temp folder. So it'll make a folder in there. It'll have stacks in the name. It'll have a random string after it. And every time we run it, it creates a new folder in the temp folder. So it's like brand new again. You're going to have to download all the burn chain blocks. You're kind of starting over. There is an option in the TOML file for what they call a working directory. So if we were to put this setting in the TOML, we could say, hey, instead of using my temp folder, I want you to use this folder, be it in documents, desktop, wherever. And then when you stop and start the miner, it kind of picks up where it left off.
Right.
That's something that we haven't been using as much until now, but I think that's going to become more of a thing as we continue to get closer to mainnet. So
That's
for right now,
true.
that's fine. We'll just let this one run.
Okay.
And the that website should come back up for you.
Yep, it's back up.
Even if it's not right away, it might take a few minutes.
Seems like it's up.
Yeah, you're at burn block height at 2, so I can tell it's working. So yeah, we'll let that do its catch up thing. That's no problem. And then how are we doing on our yarn install for the mining bot? All right, so it's having a little trouble downloading packages. Looks like a timeout error, so I'm not sure. Interesting. Yeah, so let's see, registry.yarnpackage.com. Let's see if there's any known issues or anything going on today. I can hit that URL, so I know it's up at least. Here, so we have date, FNS 2.1 eSocket timeout. Yeah, it looks like there's one package in particular related to date handling that is having some issues downloading from Yarn there. I've seen other people have had this issue before, but I don't think. Ah, okay. So yeah, we can adjust the timeout. So you can go ahead and Control C.
Okay.
On that process, and I'm going to send you a command here, and we'll just set the timeout a little bit higher.
Sure.
So this should set Yarn to wait 300 seconds instead of the default. Hopefully, we'll see if I'm right. Okay, perfect. So now what we're going to do is Yarn install again. And let's see what happens. Yeah, so more than likely when we get timeout errors like that, it's either still in the middle of the download or it just took a little longer than expected as far as the default. So I think that makes sense that setting this should help us get that download done. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
There we go. So now it's catching up where it left off and seems to be going much faster this time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're looking good there. All right, well, we can check on your node again while we're waiting for this. All right, burn block height 248. Stacks tip height still shows 0. Interesting. I don't know how fast that number is supposed to change, but I'm very curious if it has any issues as we go along. And looking at your logs here, it's pretty standard stuff that I normally see. So yeah, I think we're doing just fine. We'll let that go. I don't see anything here that jumps out to me as an error or an issue or anything like that. These are pretty common messages that everyone sees when they're running a miner. There it goes. And one of the cool things too is like from this screen, whenever someone publishes a Clarity contract on the network, you'll actually see the source code for the contract come up through this miner output here, and that was part of Clarity being the static language that's not compiled. So the source code actually gets published on chain, and from this screen we can see it as it flies by. Usually you'll see like a few hello worlds, or I know Frieger and some others run some pretty steady contracts too that they have to restart. So should see something eventually there. And then how's our yarn install doing?
Half still on the way. Yeah.
Did the yarn install finish?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
I'll just switch it over. Yeah.
All right, taking its time. I'm actually surprised. It seemed like everything else downloaded really fast for you. So there might just be an issue with a certain package or a reference or something like that too. And basically what would happen after this is it would run a small web server. You'd be able to access the website at localhost, and then you'd be able to use, essentially you would use the mining bot and the web interface to start and stop your miner, to enter your keys and information. And that way you don't have to do all the command line stuff like we were doing before. And hey, patience is the winner. I see it going up in numbers. So yeah, it's probably better if we don't watch it, right?
That's right.
But your miner looked like it was catching up as well. So, you know, one of the things we saw flying by the screen with your miner was it was showing like you actually process all the past transactions on the chain, and you start to see like who won all the different leader elections, and you're, you know, accepting the blocks and building the same view as everybody else. And then once you're caught up is when you'll start mining. And I think you're about halfway there based on what we saw earlier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like I was looking at the log and there's like winning and then an address on it.
Yep, and that's where you can see, so it'll list out all of the Bitcoin addresses that threw in their leader election or that spent sats, essentially. And then one gets chosen, it becomes the winner, and that winner is who assembles the next stacks block, and they receive the stacks reward as well. Now I'm curious, in your browser at the 127 address for V2 info, did your stacks tip height change at all?
Yep, it's 16.
Ah, yeah, you're catching up now. Perfect. I want to say there's a certain amount of Bitcoin blocks that need to be processed before you start processing the stacks chain. And I remember reading this in the Stacks Core Devs channel, and I think it has to do with bootstrapping and starting up the network. But I'm not 100% sure either. I feel like I read it somewhere. That's how it feels. It feels familiar. But yeah, so you're coming right along, and you're going to be pretty caught up. If we compare that to the testnet link right next to it on the left, go ahead and refresh that one. Okay, so 1038, 669. So yeah, you got a little ways to go. But you're moving faster now, and you'll see that kind of come up to speed, and that's how you know where you're at compared to this miner. And you can actually look at this V2 info endpoint for any public miner. So if I had a miner up at my own IP address and I actually exposed it, like, you know, to had a forwarded port or something actually exposed to the internet, then you can hit this same endpoint on any miner that's running.
this endpoint?
I think, yeah, so it's the port number is 20443. That was actually in our config file. And then what follows that is the API endpoint that we're asking for information from. So you'll see some are V1 and some are V2. And there is a list of those. Let's look that up while we're waiting here. So stacks node implementation. There it is. So the link I sent you here is a basic overview of everything these the API can do.
All right.
So you can actually look up transactions. You can query like specific block info. You can look up specific contracts. Like a lot of this is available, and what part of what the mining node is doing in the background. So you'll see examples there, or you'll have a code and structure on the left, examples on the right, and what the responses should be.
All right.
And these are the same ones we're using, like V2 info is on the page as well. All right, so how's our yarn install doing? Is it getting close to done?
Still going.
That's just the last little piece there. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, we got through fetching packages, so that was definitely somewhere where we were seeing some slowdown. This part, it's a big number, but it moves pretty fast. So hopefully this will run right through as well.
What about the miner? It says it's processing new received blocks.
Yes, yeah. So that's part of the information coming to you and everybody like syncing in the information and catching back up. So you have the burn chain blocks, which are on the Bitcoin chain, and then I believe when you see this newly received blocks, I believe these are stacks blocks. So I think you're getting them 6 at a time, and that's slowly catching up with the total that we saw from the other endpoint.
I may have missed this. What is this again? This is to install the bot?
Yes, so there's 2 parts to installing the mining bot. So one is this mining local server, and this is what, so like mining bot is the web interface, and this would be the local server. So when you tell it start a miner, this is where that part of the code lives, as far as I understand it. And I was talking with Gavin a little bit, and he was telling me that you aren't required to run a full miner in order to broadcast transactions and do what we're trying to do here. So I think we'll hear a little bit more about both how this works and kind of where it's going development wise in our presentation later.
Got it.
So yeah, so this one, you run the mining local server first, and actually if you put in, so you have that HTTP localhost 5000 at the bottom. It says that the example app is listening at the very bottom there.
Yeah.
Yep. If you put that in your browser, you should see a message that just kind of, it confirms that it's running. So we can test that out while we're waiting.
Yeah, it says server is online.
Perfect. So then we know we did that part right. And that's
Got
what
it.
we want that to be online before we access the web interface, which is what we're doing with the other one, between yarn install, and then we'll run npm start when that's done.
Got it.
So you can actually leave that tab open, because after we run npm start, you'll do localhost : 8000 for the web interface.
Mm-hmm.
So 5,000 is the mining local server, and then 8,000 will be the mining bot web interface.
Got it. Got it.
And just while we're waiting for that, did you have any other questions just about mining in general, or anything else I can help with?
Probably it's more of, I would say my current concern is I'm not confident enough to start the miner on my own.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but apart from that, I think so far so good.
Okay. Well, and that's where the competition makes all the difference. You know, I did it just for fun. I actually didn't even place in the top 5. I thought I had a good strategy and didn't make it, and that's okay. But I learned a lot, and it helped me do some of the math too, because we have to think about, you know, if we're actually going to be a miner, then we're going to be spending Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is valuable.
Right.
So how
Yes.
much do we want to spend? How do we want to spend it? You know, are we getting the rewards we want? Those are some of the questions
True.
that we have to ask as a miner. And I think that doing it in this competition fashion makes it really easy to just judge if it's the right thing for you. If not, you can run a follower node, and that still helps secure the network, and that's still a great thing, but you're not participating in that I spend Bitcoin, I get stacks relationship.
Got it. Got it.
All right, how's our yarn install doing?
All right, let me have a look. Wow, still going.
All right, a third of the way there. I'll take it. That's moving right along. Okay, well, that's fine. We got a little more time. It's gonna go pretty quickly. I'm not worried about that. What's nice is after this part is done, you don't have to do this again.
Right.
You could just go right into the folder, you hit npm start, and it starts right up.
All right. Okay. But I'll assume that whenever there's a new version, I'll have to install it again.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of the process. I mean, right now this was more of a developer preview.
That's true.
It was like, hey, you know, we have this alpha version. We want people to try it out. I really do think, or at least my guess, because it's not my program, but my guess is that down the road, this would be accessible from a website. You'd be able to hit it and just enter your info and feel confident in that and work with it.
Wow.
So I think that's definitely a possibility. If not, then same way, like, see, this is like a tough thing when it comes to development and security and everything else. When you're looking at even running a miner, the way we downloaded the binaries from GitHub, and we said, okay, it's tagged release, I'm gonna grab it, it's already built for me. Well, when something's already built, it's hard to tell if it's doing what it's supposed to do or if it's doing something else. And in this case, I do feel it's safe. I mean, it's coming through GitHub, it's from their account, nothing really funny there, but it's an easy thing to rely on that becomes a security hole. So that's where the larger set of instructions come from that say, hey, download all the code in Rust, build the executable yourself. And that's an excellent way to do it, but it requires a lot more. That's where you require like the C++ dev tools, and you definitely need Rust, and you definitely need all these little pieces to build, compile, and create the exe at the end.
Got it.
And yeah, so we got to find a balance there. And I do think that having these releases has actually made it a lot easier, especially across the different operating systems, to be able to just download that Stacks node file, and right away you can Stacks node Krypton run a follower. And that has worked 100% of the time for me. We've had a few more issues, like with the config file, we got our surprise extension on the end, or, if we mistype one little thing in there, like they crash and they have a little bit of issue, but it's still a lot faster to do it that way. So, it's getting easier. And one of my hopes in the long run, I said this a little bit earlier when we were offline too, is I would love to see some kind of installer, be it like an install script or something similar. That way you can get through all of these steps without having to worry about what's going on in the background.
Got it. All right.
But then that's also another layer, just like the releases security wise. In some ways we should know how to do it ourselves, but it's also nice to have it done for us. And convenience, there's a sacrifice for, like, you sacrifice a little bit of privacy, or you sacrifice security for convenience, and it's very common practice now. So I'm usually on the other side of that, but I do want to make it easier for people to run a miner. I do want to leave my code open to be inspected in case anybody did have any questions about it. But it's a tough balance. It really is in the software world.
Wow.
All right, well, we passed halfway. Yay.
Yeah.
It's going.
And actually, with regards to the mining, because initially when you say you participated in the previous challenge and you say you had a strategy to win, because I've always thought that as long as you just run your miners like 24/7, you'll probably get there, but turns out it's not that way.
Well, it is and it isn't. Let me clarify that answer a little bit. So your one setting that we don't have in our TOML file right now is for the burn fee. The burn fee cap is what it's called in the TOML. And by default, a miner will spend 20,000 sats per block that it's attempting to mine. So that is a steady spend that happens every time you submit yourself to the leader election. And that is what most people will do. But some of us decided, hey, we're going to change that. And we're going to see if I spend a little bit more, do I get selected to mine more blocks? And is it still profitable? Because I'm spending more money than everybody else.
That's true.
So what we saw was an average of people spending between 20 to 40,000 sats per block. But we had one miner spending something like 430,000 sats per block.
Wow.
Which is really unrealistic when you're looking at real life. I mean, that's just going to be throwing a lot of money at the network. And what was impressive about that is the leader election, which is described in much more detail in SIP 1, is it is a verifiable random function. So just because this one, and it is weighted by the amount of Bitcoin you spend, but it is a random function. So even though this person spent a lot more and they ended up mining a lot more blocks, the total amount they spent to get those blocks was not a profitable number. So that's where I really think it's unrealistic. And we started talking about a feature on the other side too. So I think it's either stackers or stacks holders can turn off the proof of transfer aspect. So there's a certain way to send a signal that says, like, hey, something funny is going on. We're going to revert to proof of burn, and we'll come back to proof of transfer later. And by doing that, you can make somebody waste their money if they're like trying to do, like, oh, I want to take all the blocks, and they're, trying to be 50% of the network. But I was surprised, like looking at the actual numbers and results, even with one person completely outspending everybody else, and with all of us having different rates that we spent at, we got a pretty good distribution across the entire group for who made blocks and everything else. And that's what you'd expect.
Because of the random function.
Hey, we got through our 90,000 with just 4,000 more to go. And Node is pretty funny to me. I'm not as familiar with it. I've played with it a little bit here and there, and it seems like anything you do in there, it wants to do 4,000 to 10,000 or something. All right, looks like we're almost done though. Well, okay.
Right. So just back to the topic on the mining challenge. Like
Sure.
you mentioned that you saw someone outspending everyone and still not profitable. What about the other extreme end when if I just commit a lot lesser sets, would and because of the random function, would I still be profitable? I don't know. Have you seen such cases?
It makes sense. There is a minimum. There is a minimum threshold. So I don't remember offhand what it was. I do remember it was changed from 10,000 to 20,000, if I remember correctly. So that's where, or it might even be like 18,000. Like it might be a little under that, but 20,000 was just a safe value to run the miners at by default. So there's a minimum threshold that you hit, and I'm just blanking about the reason why, but I have it. I could find it for you if you want more information.
Yeah, I think it's done, if I'm not wrong.
Looks like it. Okay, so if it's all done, you can run npm start is going to be our next command.
All right. Oh. No,
it's almost there. Okay.
All right. True. Like when you mentioned that having a threshold, probably it makes sense because I was just thinking like if there's no threshold, I'll just commit one set
per
block. And with a random function, somehow I might get allocated to it.
And that's true. The randomness is exactly that. So we see that there is a there is a random factor to all of this. Like, if I'm mining at 20,000 sats and you're mining at 20,000 sats, there's no guarantee that either one of us are going to win.
That's true. Yeah.
Especially when the numbers are the same like that. So let's see.
Yeah. So I should type npm install or npm start?
npm start.
All right.
And it should start up to localhost 8000 in just a minute. It's actually going to build something with Webpack real quick, and then it'll be done. And I was looking back for that threshold, and
but given how Bitcoin price change, I don't know, like would the threshold change in the future as well?
I don't think so. I think it has to do with the fact that we're working with both chains. So we are, creating a block on the Bitcoin chain or a transaction on the Bitcoin chain. And one of the things that the competition didn't take into consideration this last time was that there are miner fees. So there's two sides of that actually. You're paying a little bit on the Bitcoin side for miner fees, and then you're also receiving stacks as part of being a miner. So like if you're selected for that leader election, then you also get all of the transaction fees in addition to the Coinbase reward. So those little details are what we're learning a lot about as we're trying to do this. Or I know I am. I can say for me, I started this year, early with Blockstack, probably in January. And really just learning about it. And I had known of cryptocurrency, but I had never played with it. And I knew what it was, and I knew about it, but I'd never really gotten into it. It just felt like it was a little bit over my head. And this was the first one where I said, okay, I really want to jump in here, and I want to see what's going on. And I learned at a crazy rate, and I still feel like I'm learning everything I do. There's always one more little piece and one more little thing. And so it's been a fascinating journey so far. And that's where I'm really happy that I can help people do stuff like this, and we can get you up and running. But to actually like explain the core technical ins and outs, I've been trying to glean a lot just from reading from the core devs and looking over documentation, but there's still little pieces that I am not 100% sure on. I will say this though, whenever you're in doubt, or if you want some really good technical information, the SIPs are the place to go. So
Got it.
SIP001 handles like the burning and leader election, and SIP007 handles stacking. And that's where the technical details really are.
Got it. Yeah, give me a moment. I'll just make a note on that.
Oh, sure. I'll send you a link too. Let me grab
Sure.
that for you. Where is that? Oops, I was muted there. All right, so I'm going to send you this link, and so this is where the SIPs live on GitHub, and you'll see. So SIP1 is burn election, SIP7 is stacking. All of them are very good reads and kind of give some real good technical background as to what's going on there as well.
Got it. So this is the one. I'll just make a note as well.
Hey, look at that.
Yeah.
So the initial password here is going to be an 8-character password that I believe this is what encrypts your data in local storage. So this will be just a password that you use to access it while you're using it. And I'm sure we're going to learn a little more about the specifics there as we go. So you'll just put in the same password twice.
And to clarify, this is just testing, right? So I can change my password when the real thing starts.
Yes, correct. And this is I believe just for this session from this computer. So even if you were to use another computer to try and access the mining bot or another browser, you would have to create a new password. It's kind of per device or per connection.
Got it. All right.
All right, so here you can see some information about what's going on in the network and what some of the miners are doing, which will be really useful later. But before you can actually start mining, we're going to have to go into the wallet screen. So we're going to want to set up your Bitcoin and Stacks address in here. So go ahead and hit add. And right now you have to do it twice, but you'll grab that 24-word mnemonic phrase from the keychain file. And you can actually open that keychain file in Notepad, and you'll be able to see it just the same. You don't have to use that type command on the command prompt. Yeah, so first one you'll do, you can do either one. you'll just have to do the same exact thing again for the other one. So you can do Bitcoin first. And you'll see it'll actually take that phrase and turn it into your Bitcoin address. So when you hit submit, you should see the same Bitcoin address that we saw before. Boom, on the list, MTQ. And then do the same thing for stacks. And you can see your balance there too, which is pretty cool. So some of the stuff, we were having to look up via, curl or looking via the browser. That information is a lot easier to access through a web interface like this.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So you got them both in there. So now if we go to mining client and you hit start mining, and you can see we can select your BTC account right there. The little toggle on the left side of it. Surprise. And next up, this is that burn fee cap that we were talking about. So it's 20,000 by default. It can be increased, it can be decreased. Although I think, like I was saying, I think the minimum you want to be right around 20,000 to make sure that you're actively participating and having a chance to mine blocks. And then go ahead and hit finish. And let's see if it works. Looks like it was able to launch it. And that is going to launch a new miner. Very cool. So I think if we, if you scroll up and hit that get node status, see if that'll change for us. And maybe refresh the page. Let's try that. Okay. So this part's a little harder for me because I don't know exactly what's going on in the background, but I have noticed that we've had some just small issues given it's an alpha version. So it may be running in the background and it's not telling us. It may be not running at all. And we'll probably learn a little more about that after we have our demo. And I think as we see the next version come out, we can say, hey, it was really hard to tell if it was running or not. And I'm sure that's something they can help us, display a little better and fix all around. So that's it. But this is the interface. This is what it looks like between the public data, the wallet page, and the mining client. It makes things a lot easier to look at. And previous to this, like for this mining info that you see down here, Pascal, PSQ, he made a really cool tool called StacksDump. And it would go through all the databases and it would dump out all this information. It's very similar to the spreadsheet we use to judge the competition. And you can see like, all right, total mined is how long that miner's been online, how many times they've attempted. You've got the actual wins. So even though you win the leader election and you go to mine a block, sometimes you aren't on the longest chain tip. And because of that, it doesn't get accepted after you build it. So this is, there's actually a difference between like the number you win and the number you actually win. And I believe that's related to why there's a lockup on the rewards. The stacks rewards don't happen right away. And I think that's why, but I'd have to dig a little deeper myself. And then you can see that total burned amount for Satoshis too. So you can see relative to the total amount they mined or relative to the actual wins. And the competition was judged by actual win divided by total burn.
All right.
So that's what kind of normalized the competition to make it a little more fair. It's not just go grab a bunch of testnet Bitcoin and go for it. It's like you actually want to use a strategy.
True.
Awesome. Well, it looks like you're all good to go. Any other questions for me?
No, I think, I'm good for now.
All right.
Sure. I guess, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem at all. If you want to, you can leave the other miner running and you can close. So the two windows that we started here with npm start, you can use Control-C to end those just like we do with the miner. And you can leave the miner running, or that part's totally up to you. If you want to watch the output for a bit, you start to get used to it after a little while.
All right, got it. So
okay. So we've got a little more information here. It looks like it was trying to. Yeah, it was probably trying to start something. Something happened. We see an error there. So it was trying to start that stacks node, and there was a problem. But I think things like this are definitely going to be resolved later. So I wouldn't worry about it here. But to get out of the program, you can Control C, just like we were doing to exit the miner.
Got it.
Yep, and terminate. Perfect. And you can do the same with the mining bot one as well, which will take down that little website.
Yeah.
Yep, so now that won't be accessible anymore. And finally, it's up to you if you want to leave your node running or not. But you're still running a miner in that other window.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I'll
still
just
linked
leave
to your Bitcoin and Stacks addresses. So if you leave it going for a little while, you can check those balances and you can say, okay, I think one of the links I sent you earlier was how to check your Bitcoin balance. And you can actually see there too. So somebody was trying to run some clarity code, and it looks like something went wrong, and then now there's a contract call. So this is part of where you see the source code published on the chain as well, which is pretty neat. So yeah, that'll keep flying by. You're almost caught up with the network, and if you don't have any other questions, I think we're pretty good to go.
Yeah, I'm good, and yeah, thank you for showing me so much.
Hey, no problem. I'm glad we could walk through it. And now, as you ask questions or if you have issues, like, feel free to reach out. I'm gonna go ahead and stop our recording here. So 1 second.